The start was not good, then the pace was not good in the beginning already, just tires overheating again. First pit stop, something went wrong with the lights, they stayed on. Now you can drive through the lights. Then I was stuck in traffic. The hard tires, unfortunately, they didn't work.
Max Verstappen completely lost his mind after yesterday's disastrous Bahrain GP. And honestly, you can't blame him.
Then we pitted again, and even worse pit stops, so then I was last.
And actually, Max Verstappen, even though the result was disappointing today, he did well, I think, to salvage that 6th place.
From screaming over the radio that he couldn't even brake to watching Red Bull's pit crew fumble like amateurs, it was a meltdown nobody saw coming.
Ja, op dit moment even niet, heb ik geen zin in.
Just a week ago, this was the same guy who dominated Suzuka, and now he's stuck behind a rookie. It's honestly embarrassing.
I think it's a weekend that's exposed all those kind of the weaknesses in the car are kind of...
Until they fix the problem, or until it just gets too far into the season, they're not going to.
Speculations are already flying that Max is about to make a massive decision after this humiliation, and here's exactly why it's all about to explode.
We were watching Max Verstappen win the Japanese Grand Prix for Red Bull. Today, he was nowhere in Bahrain.
So, just 7 days ago, Max Verstappen was untouchable. At Suzuka, he looked like a man driving in a different league. Fastest laps, pole position, domination. It wasn't even close. Red Bull seemed to have their empire under control again. And then, Bahrain happened.
Finished 6th, spent a lot of the afternoon battling with midfielders and had to pass Pierre Gasly's Alpine for 6th on the last lap. Meanwhile, as expected, Oscar Piastri led from start to finish, and even Ferrari and Mercedes could at least fight with Lando Norris in the 2nd McLaren.
1 week later, the same Max was stuck behind Pierre Gasly's Alpine and an 18-year-old rookie who barely had his first season underway. This wasn't a rough day at the office. This was a complete collapse.
Through corner balance problem. There's this disconnect, it's got kind of turn-in oversteer, shifts to understeer on the way out, this disconnect that they've talked about through last year and into this year.
The Red Bull that tore through Suzuka turned into a confused mess overnight. In Bahrain, the RB21 wasn't just slower, but it was unrecognizable. Fans listened in real time as Max's radio messages showed a driver completely fed up with his car. "I can't even brake anymore," he said, voice sharp with disbelief. And that right there wasn't just a driver losing a race. It was a world champion watching his car betray him. But the worst part wasn't just what happened on track. It's what happened after. During his post-race interview, Max looked like he had gone 12 rounds with a heavyweight fighter.
Ja, op dit moment even niet, heb ik geen zin in.
His words were short, his face cold. "I don't even want to talk to the team right now," he said, brushing off the microphone with the kind of anger that doesn't come from just one bad day. It's deeper. It's personal.
Red Bull aren't too worried about that. It was a problem. It's a braking system issue, a mechanical issue, not down to temperature management or anything, but they're pretty happy they can fix that. It's something that they understand. So,
over the winter, Max had warned Red Bull's engineers during testing. The gap to McLaren was real, and it wasn't going to magically disappear. But nobody listened. Red Bull brushed it off. Max's body language now says it all. He's racing for Red Bull, but he sure doesn't look like he's racing with them anymore. You don't just lose a race like that, you lose trust, and once that's gone, the cracks get bigger by the second.
now those are specific weekend problems, and that didn't help, and that meant that Verstappen was having to work hard in the race. But it's coming back always to this balance problem with the car. They had the problems last year, they've had problems this year.
And Bahrain showed those cracks loud and clear. The RB21 has a giant problem nobody at Red Bull seems able to fix. Max fought the car through every single lap. Oversteer snapping the car sideways on entry. Understeer making it stubborn and lazy on the way out. It's a complete disconnect, one that makes the tires heat up faster, wear out faster, and kill performance.
What it does is then the tyres are sliding a little bit. So if you're in a weekend where tyre temperatures are a problem, the car starts sliding, it loses performance, it loses even more performance, and the whole thing just spirals out of control. Then you're into a performance management problem, you're dropping back.
The hard tires that were supposed to survive Bahrain's brutal heat? Useless. Max said it himself. Lower grip, higher deg. In simple terms, the tires didn't stick, they just melted. And the braking problems? They aren't just minor adjustments. Red Bull has mechanical braking defects. When a driver like Max, who makes a living out of precision braking, says he can't brake properly, you know it's a full-blown disaster. By mid-race, it wasn't about winning anymore. It was about staying out of the barriers.
The other problem was the pit stops went wrong. Now, people will have seen that the traffic light stayed on, the red lights. Now, what Christian Horner, the Red Bull team principal, told us was that there was some kind of wiring loom problem, and that led to the red lights not going out, both for Verstappen and Tsunoda's first stop. They didn't know that was the problem. And because those stops were so close together, of course, they did Verstappen's. They thought, oh, probably it was finger trouble.
As if the on-track mess wasn't enough, Red Bull's legendary pit stop team decided to join the chaos too. The first pit stop was a disaster when the pit lights, which tell the driver when to go, stayed stuck on red. Max had to sit there helpless, losing valuable seconds while the crew scrambled to fix a glitch no one had prepared for.
Is their old wind tunnel? It's sophisticated, it's been modernised. Inside it can give the tools. In a regulation era where you go in the wind tunnel, you find improvements, you're getting 10 points of downforce, 20 points of downforce.
And then came the second stop. You'd think they'd have gotten their act together after that embarrassment. Nope. This time, the front right wheel gun took 3 attempts to fit the tire properly. 3. At Red Bull, a team that spent the last 7 years winning the fastest pit stop award, that's not just a mistake. That's a system failure.
And the biggest weakness, from what I understand about their wind tunnel, is it's temperature sensitive. It's not insulated like some of the modern facilities. So if it's very cold, it's pretty useless. If it's super hot outside, it's pretty useless. But worse than that is the kind of data and feedback varies based on how hot it is. So you're not getting consistent feedback.
And honestly, we all know Red Bull has spent the last 7 seasons redefining perfection in the pit lane. From 2018 to 2020, they collected the fastest pit stop award like clockwork, crushing teams like Ferrari and Mercedes on pure operational execution. It wasn't just bragging rights, it was a core part of how Red Bull stayed unbeatable. But in Bahrain 2025, all of that collapsed in a matter of minutes.
The start was not good, then the pace was not good in the beginning already, just tires overheating again.
Max Verstappen's first pit stop should have been routine. Instead, he was left stranded, helpless, because the pit lights, the system designed to signal drivers when it's safe to leave, glitched and stayed stuck on red. Christian Horner later confirmed the issue was traced to a wiring loom malfunction. Red Bull's once bulletproof pit system failed at the most basic level. Verstappen, trained like every driver to trust the lights blindly, sat still as precious seconds evaporated.
Then I was stuck in traffic. The hard tires, unfortunately, they didn't work.
If that was the end of the disaster, maybe Red Bull could have salvaged the narrative, but it wasn't. When Max came in for his second stop, the front right wheel gun, the tool used to secure the tire, needed 3 separate attempts to properly fit. In a sport where pit stops are measured in thousandths of a second, Red Bull's pit crew fumbled visibly and publicly. And it wasn't just Max. Yuki Tsunoda, driving for Red Bull's sister team RB, formerly AlphaTauri, also suffered a pit stop failure caused by the same lighting system glitch. Red Bull's internal explanation later revealed that the team initially thought Verstappen's problem was finger trouble, a human error, until Tsunoda's identical issue made it clear. It was a full system malfunction. 1 race, 2 blown stops, 2 drivers were sabotaged by their own team's infrastructure. Red Bull's legendary pit lane perfectionism isn't just bruised, it's dead. And that's only part of the bigger nightmare unfolding, because the car itself, the RB21, isn't helping either.
Red Bull are hoping that will help them a little bit. But do Red Bull have the tool?
Red Bull insiders admitted after Bahrain that they have fixed only 25% of the RB21's core flaws. That's not speculation. That figure comes directly from sources inside the team who spoke to Autosport on April 14, 2020. The car has a serious balance problem, oversteering wildly on entry and understeering into corners, a flaw Red Bull carried over from 2024 despite claiming they were solving it over the winter break. Why does the problem still exist? Part of the answer lies in Red Bull's outdated wind tunnel facility. Christian Horner, for the first time this season, publicly acknowledged a wind tunnel correlation issue in Bahrain. Red Bull's current wind tunnel is so temperature sensitive that even small changes in outside weather conditions completely distort the data. Test the same car 3 times? Get 3 different answers. Instead of science, Red Bull is playing setup roulette every race weekend. And while the team tries to mask these problems on tracks like Suzuka, where cooler temps hide tire overheating, circuits like Bahrain with high temperatures and heavy braking expose them brutally.
Enough progress because they didn't make a big enough step last year. The new wind tunnel, of course, is in build. It's ahead of schedule, but they're not going to have that till 2027. So really, championship-wise, it's for the moment we're in a phase where Verstappen just has to make the best of it. He's 8 points now behind.
The ultimate fix? Red Bull's brand new, fully temperature-insulated wind tunnel, but it won't be operational until 2027. That means Max Verstappen and Red Bull are stuck gambling on unreliable aero data for the next 2.5 years. It's not surprising then that Max has mentally checked out of the championship fight already. After Bahrain, he didn't mince words. "I'm not fighting for the 2020 title. I'm just taking part," he said bluntly to F1 TV in his post-race debrief on April 13, 2025.
Lando Norris, so he's got to make sure on weekends like Suzuka he takes the win. If 6 is the best he can do on a weekend like this, he keeps doing it, get to Spain, hope things change, and then you can be in a straight fight. But
this wasn't just frustration speaking. Max admitted that the performance gap to McLaren was obvious since winter testing back in February. He called it then, half a second per lap. Bahrain just proved it wasn't paranoia. It was a cold reality. And the championship standings tell the same story. After Bahrain, Max Verstappen sits 8 points behind Lando Norris, a McLaren driver who's now leading the World Championship battle for the first time in his career.
When you nail the balance and the car's performing beautifully, you can look after the tyres and it's exponential almost, the pace goes. I think Red Bull have this belief that if they can nail this problem with a car, and especially on the corner entry, if they can dial out this oversteer element, so tame that without that then triggering even worse oversteer on the way out.
It's a stunning fall. Last year, Verstappen practically coasted to the title with Red Bull locking out podiums. This year, he's in survival mode, trying to stay ahead of Alpine midfielders, not chasing wins. But here's where things get even more dangerous for Red Bull. Max Verstappen doesn't have to stay loyal forever. He has a contract escape clause, confirmed by both Christian Horner and Helmut Marko publicly in 2023, that allows him to leave Red Bull early if performance standards aren't met. And right now, they're not. Talks between Max's camp and rival teams have already been reported. Automotor and Sport revealed on April 12, 2025, that Mercedes has expressed quiet interest, and Aston Martin is watching closely too. Martin Brundle, veteran F1 analyst at Sky Sports, spelled it out perfectly. If Max hits the market, George Russell should worry. Russell, currently Mercedes' golden boy, would instantly be at risk if Toto Wolff got a second chance at signing Verstappen after missing him as a teenager.
And actually, Max Verstappen, even though the result was disappointing today, he did well, I think, to salvage that 6th place. And the reason
The timing couldn't be worse for Red Bull. The next major regulatory shakeup is coming in 2026. If Max wants a fresh start with a new team, now is the time to move. Staying at Red Bull while they flounder with unreliable wind tunnels and broken car concepts would be career suicide. And that's assuming Red Bull even survives the next year intact, because internally, the team is bleeding badly. Bahrain 2025 marked the first time since the Las Vegas Grand Prix in November 2020 that both Red Bull drivers finished in the points. But no one inside the garage was celebrating. The energy was tense, the faces grim. Even Helmut Marko admitted post-race to ORF TV that fundamental problems have crept into the operation. Those problems go way deeper than pit stops or tire wear. Key engineering staff have quietly left since early 2020. Red Bull's once unified leadership is fractured after internal power struggles, most notably the battle for influence between Christian Horner and Adrian Newey. Meanwhile, McLaren, Ferrari, and Mercedes aren't just catching up, they're hunting. Red Bull's 2-year dominance is collapsing fast, and it's happening right under Max Verstappen's nose. Now tell me, after watching yesterday's race, do you think Max's frustration is justified or not? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.